I'm Brad Giblin. I'm the digital media manager for Film Victoria, and I take care of their mobile, online and video game investments. Victoria is a state in Melbourne, in Victoria, Australia, down the south. We're based in Melbourne, which is the capital, and I'm over here for the GameOn Finance Conference. The industry in Australia is going quite well. In terms of funding, Film Vic's the biggest source of government funds for the industry, but our entire industry doesn't really rely on government funds, so about 1% of their revenue comes from government funds, so it's not a great deal. They've suffered a little bit with the downturn, which is kind of mirroring, the global downturn really. So suffered with the rest of them. We've had a few companies shut down. We've had a few companies downsize, and that's just due to the fact that a lot of products been delayed. We're very much a fee-for-service business, so it very much impacts our companies. But on the flip side, we've had some really great innovation over the last couple of years with mobile companies in general, like Firemint and Iron Monkey, doing some world-leading stuff on iPhone and mobile platforms. So there's some good, there's some bad, and it's hopefully stabilizing at the moment. Well, we've got an interesting culture. We've got really good art, we've got really good designers. We like to think that one of the specialties of the Australian market is tapping into a multicultural city like Melbourne. Excellent art and design, but interesting time zone. We've got the ability to work very closely with the developing markets out of China and India. So there's avenues into those marketplaces, but it's still very much a Western city. So it's kind of east meets west in a certain sense, but still really good business practices, very cheap commercial real estate, excellent place to set up either a developer or a publisher, and ability to tap into those markets. So that's the niche of Australia. Depending on the Australian dollar, development is generally very cheap, very comparable to, well, favourably comparable to Canada or the US. So there's cost benefits. Again, that fluctuates accordingly. No, our local businesses are mostly, especially in Melbourne, they're very local. They're very owned by locals. Australia, and Melbourne in particular, has a very rich history in video games. We used to have a company set up in Australia called Beam Software, it's over 20 years old now. It was one of the first video game companies. At one point they had, I think, 20% of the market, the entire video game market in the world. They were operational during the 80s. A lot of those guys spawned a lot of different companies around the place, so there are a lot of the bigger companies in Melbourne now. Beam was quite successful for a number of years, and they had some titles like Way of the Exploding Fist and The Hobbit, so really early influential video game titles. So that's the history of our market, and it's still very much, very local, very creative, leading in certain aspects. Well, cost is still a good one. The access to a skilled Western workforce, we have the ability to do quite good localization. We've got excellent populations of huge amounts of Melbourne's very multicultural, so huge amounts of different nationality people within Melbourne. We've also got access to those different markets. So our guys who are based in Melbourne find they do a lot of travelling overseas, but in terms of having other studios set off, maybe like an offshoot from their head office, or a second development studio, it's nice, and we have a lot of people looking for the 24-hour workday as well. So a lot of studios tag teaming between Melbourne, Europe, or North America, and they're able to shorten time frames, get two teams work on it, and no language issues. So we're firm believers that we need to retain the IP within our local industry to make high value games. We've had good success with a number of people in the past. Steve Faulkner is one of them, who is from a local company called Infinite Interactive. Steve's been making games for nearly 20 years, but originally with his Warlord series of games, he was able to retain the IP in that, and has now spun that into Puzzle Quest, and is doing a number of different Puzzle Quest spin-offs as well. So he's one guy, has a lot of IP, holds a huge amount, and that obviously creates better opportunities for him going to deal with publishers and that kind of thing. So most of our government funds go towards development, but it goes heavily towards retaining that IP. So we take a share in IP during the investment, but we always give it back to the producer. So the producer ends up with at least some IP, generally all of it. Video games are quite a skilled workforce. Our immigration is very open towards it. We've had a number of companies. I remember one company telling me recently, a couple of years ago, it was quite hard to find staff in Melbourne. That's a bit different now. A lot of our universities are pushing out a lot of graduates, and particularly a few years ago, they were looking for kind of AAA people and next-gen people, which was hard to come by anyway. But a lot of those companies look towards getting people in from different countries, and some companies have anywhere up to 30–40% of international workers. But they're pulling them from all over the world. They're different specialities, and now we've got a very diverse workforce and excellent relocation. if you want beaches and sun and good coffee, good culture. So yeah, we don't find it hard to attract people back to Melbourne.